Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back in War Thunder looking at another custom mission or a user mission for one of these battlefield engineer vehicles. And once again, I'm not on my proper computer right now. Few people have complained about the quality of the videos, and all I can say is I understand. I'm on a pretty old rig, so therefore it's not going to be the best. But I do want to get the information out there for you guys, and I'm going to try my best to do so over the next few days. Anyway, the Project 122 BIS is coming into the game as a premium vehicle for the Battlefield Engineer event. All you need is one ticket or one voucher or one coupon to be able to make it. So you need to create the I-180S, and then after you've done that, you can then start working on the Project 122 BIS. What does this machine entail? Well, unfortunately the version that I've been able to create doesn't have the bomb mortars on the front of it, which seems to be a mainstay or a staple reason to use this thing. Instead, what we have is the 37mm on the back, also the 85 on the front, and a collection of machine guns. So this does have access to primary weapons, secondary weapons, and also AA weapons, which overall, in my opinion, is a good mix. It means that your AI gets to have a bit of fun while you use some of your main guns. One of the interesting things, though, which is not normally brought up, but is something that has to be considered about Soviet machines in naval, is gun depression. Weirdly enough, there is a lot of Soviet machines out there which struggle with the idea of gun depression, and this one is no different. If you look at the machine guns, there are a lot of dead zones that it actually has on the water, because these are designed to shoot aircraft, so you know they're out of the picture a lot of the time. When it comes to the 85, there's this little lip of metal in front of it, looking straight forward, and that actually limits the gun, so you can't actually shoot close to you straight ahead. So what you have to do is angle your ship either slightly to the right or slightly to the left, so you miss this piece of metal. On top of this, there is the two 37s at the back, and generally they're able to do alright when it comes to the depression issue, apart from the front one. And the reason for this is somebody has decided to put a lifeboat right next to the front 37, so getting it around it means that you have to pull the gun up. It's actually got a physical model, which is really awesome, you know, that's how it should be, but the problem is you can't get the gun looking, you know, straight when looking through it. Instead, it has to do this convoluted idea of going around it. So every gun type on this machine definitely has a few issues when it comes to, you know, how its guns work and all of that good stuff. When we talk about the general speed of the machine, the speed is not great. The engines seem quite pitiful, actually. I thought they would be a little bit better looking at the general schematics of the machine, but it seems like, at least in War Thunder, they are not too powerful for the size of machine that is here, and also the rudder itself doesn't seem too great either. Now, what is a blessing in disguise, though, is at least in the files, now remember, in the files is not concrete, this machine was listed as a 2.3 vehicle. Now, what this means is this is a battle boat. You know, this is not going to go up against destroyers. Instead, it's going to be that little type of ship which is mixed in with the PT boats at that really fun BR. Generally, for me, 2.0 to 3.0 is where ships really shine. They are incredibly fun around those BRs, and the main reason is because they are a good mixture of stuff. You know, you can either go smaller with a ton of torpedoes. There's a lot of nippy vehicles which are able to run really fast. Then you have these slightly larger boats which can deal a lot of damage, but also can be taken out quite easily with torpedoes or with something else. And this 122 definitely fits in that larger ship category. And the main reason is because, well, it's big, it's not very maneuverable, and it also has the big guns. Now, for me, when using Soviet ships, I've never ever use the main gun as a primary. Normally there are some KPVT machine guns, or there are some 37s or 45s to use instead of the main gun, and the same thing is true for the 122 BIS. I don't see the use in piloting manually the 85 on the front, when instead what I can do is pilot the 237s from behind. This pretty much means that you can get a lot more damage off with the 37s, and every so often, you know, the 85 will just donk something and do a lot of damage to it, maybe a smaller boat. This does mean that if you are going straight or trying to get towards an objective, that you're going to have to go at an angle, so all three of your guns, you know, the two 37s and the 85 can all shoot at the same target. You know, that is something that you should be working on pretty well, and hopefully the machine guns can sometimes, you know, be able to help out. So for me, it definitely has the issue that some ships have, where its guns are not in the best position. Like, it would be much better if the 237s were on the front of the ship and the 85 was on the back, but that is just, you know, a War Thunder thing and not a general thing when it comes to, you know, ship design in general. You know, it makes much more sense to have the 85 on the front in real life than it does the 237s. But it does cut through the waves pretty well. As I said, the only issue is the acceleration of it, and the general speed doesn't feel great. So I've got a feeling it's going to get caught out by torpedoes quite a lot, especially since it's got quite a low BR. You normally end up on slightly smaller maps, or at least these smaller areas of maps in Naval, and as we see from stuff like the Flower class and the Isle class from the British, which are really hard to take out, but at the same time, they can't really get anywhere, because once they start, you know, going into open water, or once they start moving, you either get bombed by a plane, or you get torpedoed to all hell. So I've got a feeling this thing is going to be a bit of an island hopper, where you sit behind one island, and then you sit behind the next one, and then you slowly but surely move towards the cap. But once you have your eyes on a target, the 37s should absolutely annihilate it. One thing in my travels in War Thunder Naval that really took me by surprise is the BMO Soviet ship, and the, well, not autocannon, but the cannon it has on the front. It's incredibly deadly, has a lot of power behind it, and pretty much what you're doing on the 122 bis is doubling that amount of damage, and also adding an 85, and also adding some machine guns and some useless bomb mortars. So you are, in effect, making the case for a heavily armed battle boat at 2.3, which doesn't have a lot of maneuverability. And this is the thing, right? So this thing should be quite easy to kill, either with torpedoes or with just generally just annihilating it with everything around, but it can also dish out a lot of damage. Maybe collateral damage, maybe the way to see it, or maybe it's kind of like a martyr in a way, where this thing has to send itself out in order to get annihilated, but also can annihilate other ships. The MO4 and the BMO were great at this back in the day, because they either had very bugged armor models, or it was just, you know, what they did. They can't do it so much nowadays because of the fact that either people have worked out where to shoot them, or they're a little less buggy. But I think the 122 can do the same. It reminds me a lot of when the LCS was first introduced in CBT, when it was a 2.3 vehicle. One of the key things about the LCS was it had the 40mm Bofors, it had 4 of them, but even 2 of them was able to dish out enough damage to pretty much annihilate anything in its close vicinity. But what the LCS has over something like a 122 is obviously more main guns, but also it had good, or at least decent, maneuverability when fully upgraded. This does feel like a lumbersome machine. It doesn't feel like a machine which is going to power around the waves and, you know, do a lot when it comes to moving from point to point. And as something that is going to come up against a lot of speedy boys, either from the Americans or the Soviets themselves or the British, with stuff like the Dark class, you're going to need to be able to move from point to point to point quickly in order to capture each of them. And this is not that type of machine. It's not as bad as a Schwer, you know, the battle barges from the Germans, but it definitely isn't as good as some of the battle boats that we have in the game right now. So it's going to get stuck in an area that you choose, then my guess is it'll get torpedoed to death. But while that's all happening, you do have a lot of firepower to be able to dish out. I wouldn't worry too much about the bomb mortars. I have never seen a bomb mortar be able to really do anything, but that might just be me being bad at using them. It does seem to have a part of it which is designed to hold depth charges, so that will be a nice thing to see in the future. And if submarines ever do come, well, at least it's equipped to deal with them in some very nice ways. Right now, though, it's going to be great against, you know, battle boats or other lighter boats like PT boats, but anything higher it may struggle with. I personally am looking forward to it just because of the amount of damage it can dish out, but I can definitely see a lot of the flaws that this machine has, mainly down to its maneuverability. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank B. Young, Blackie, Dyslexic Child, Martinez, Moxie, Nito, Nick Graham, Alobralo, and Super Cacti for supporting me on Patreon.